Hi guys, I'm trying to make another video here for you. I get a lot of messages, a lot of requests, especially in the FU Florsheim group on Facebook. People wanting to see more of my collection, and the post I put together today is going to be about vintage Florsheim lace-up alligator models. I decided to limit it to lace-ups. There's a lot of slip-ons out there too, and I've got them arranged in what I believe is order from oldest to newest. They varied over time in terms of the number of eyelets. The older models have 2, the newer models have 3. I believe these are the oldest pair that I have. Part of that is because of the lining and the decal on the sole. This sort of I don't know if you can see that, if it'll focus enough. Almost like a glazed leather lining is something that you see on Florsheims from the 50s, but ended by about the 60s. The overall condition of them is okay. The tiles are in pretty good shape on these, but the binding, not so much, at least on the toe. That could use to be replaced. There's always an issue with these at the flex points, both on the left and the right side, where the crease kind of meets the body of the shoe. That's one place where they really start to show wear quickly. Are these wearable? Definitely. Are they museum worthy? Sure. Should they be worn? I don't know. That's a matter of opinion, but I could. The next pair is probably the best of the lot in terms of their condition and just the gorgeous nature of the skin. It's kind of that peanut brittle alligator. You see the sole markings have switched to the Imperial Quality logo from just the regular Florsheim crest. These are just gorgeous. There is some dryness to the skins. I could treat them with a more aggressive conditioner, but it would cover up some of that peanut brittle coloration that I really like. These are definitely wearable. The striations on the sole instead of the wood grain finish is another thing that's common from this period. I guess none of the Royal Imperials, which they switched to eventually, really had that classic Imperial grain finish either. But you did see this sort of a sole on a lot of Imperial models from the early 60s. It's got the blind stitch, the nailed, not really dovetail heel, but close. And the markings on them are handwritten. The tongue is padded. The toe box is canvas. Just a really, really nice pair of shoes there. By sometime in the 60s, mid-60s maybe, Florsheim switched to 3 eyelet models. We've still got the classic Imperial logo. By the later 60s, they had switched to having a Royal Imperial marking in alligator shoes. Also, usually this gold crest indicates that they're 60s era. Not always. Once they switch now to the darker lining, they used a graphite colored ink to mark things like the size and the model number, and that doesn't tend to last. It's not very durable. So they'll often have trouble reading that. I can't read that in this model. But another interesting feature with this pair, as opposed to the last two, which are later 60s, is that each blucher, the piece extends all the way back to the heel, And there's this interesting sort of almost a diamond joint at the back that closes it off, brings it all together. Again, we've got a sole that's more associated with Royal Imperial models later on. It's the same sort of a sole that I believe is on the Stratford, if I remember right, which you're probably more familiar with. Again, these are 100% wearable. Skins are really in good shape, no signs of cracking or dryness. The last two pairs in black and brown are probably late 60s or early 70s models. They do have Royal Imperial markings. You can't really see it at all in this pair, but you can in the black pair. I take that back. Looking at these, they do have an old regular Florsheim logo in them. You can kind of see the curve of it there. So these probably are closer to the middle 60s as well. These really have nice skins, nice big tiles, kind of got a bulge to them. Unfortunately, this pair is more dried out. You can see that the cracking between the scales is there. It's surface level, but it's there. The binding on these has started to crack a little bit too. But again, just an outstanding pair of Florsheim shoes. A little bit lighter in color than the other brown pair, but not quite as light as the second. These, the construction has changed a little bit. It's more of a derby style. I guess this pair I called them a blucher, I think, but they are more of a derby style, derby blucher hybrid, I don't know. These are definitely a derby style. And that's what you see on the last pair, the Royal Imperial, as well. It's got a derby style to it. These have been rehealed at some point. These are more worn than the other pairs, but black tends to hold up better than brown. I don't know if it's because people wore their brown shoes more, the brown gaiters. They definitely do look more striking than black, or if it's just the way that the leather is processed and finished. But I generally see very little in terms of surface level cracking in the skins in black compared to brown. I sanded and changed the color of the sole edging to brown. I think it makes them pop a little bit. The markings again are worn off, but it's got that Royal Imperial logo in it. It still has the V cut at the front of the lining in the footbed, which is indicative of older models. Perforations, if you can see that in the lining of the toe box, which again is something that was eventually done away with at some point, probably during the 70s. It was a common thing in older, better quality shoes, but cost-cutting measures meant that it was one of the things to go along the way. With that, the only thing that I use to treat my vintage exotic these days is Bickmore for exotic shoes. It's really a lightweight material. It works really well. A lot of people recommend other products, especially Sapphire Reptan. I've never had very good luck with Reptan. I don't know. I used it on these at one point in time, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but even though I put it on with a paintbrush in a really thin layer and let it dry for a day, as soon as I wore these between the scales, the sort of a finish or veneer that Repten leaves on the shoes started to crack and leaves like a yellowy cracked, looks almost like a film that's cracked in between the scales at the break points. So I don't use that anymore. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram, _profs_shoes.